All right. So today I have as my guest Monty Campbell, who is the owner of Lean Mobile Apps there. Monty, thank you so much for being with me here today. Thank you for your time. All right.
Pleasure always.
Um, my first question for you, Monty, is can you tell me a little bit about yourself there? So,
Okay. So, my quick background, I started in online marketing in 1999. I have done both e-commerce, online marketing, and retail operations for everything from a bike shop to women's clothing. And from an online perspective, I've really focused on optimization of both online presences as well as websites for a significant period of time, from HTML coding to PHP. But just really having a perspective of how and what kind of tools to use as you move forward with your online focus.
okay, great. And how'd you get started with building your own agency? I mean, you kind of answered that to a certain degree, but maybe you can go into like what your agency, because I know it's evolved a little bit. How would you describe your agency and like your focus at this particular point in time?
So what's really happened was necessity. And to go back, I started again with HTML and coding and online marketing in
Mhm.
'99. And at that time, I was doing online advertising for a startup, and we were buying media. We were doing media buys, and so I realized how to do the right, effective kinds of creative that resulted in conversion, and as a result, the right kind of ads for those conversions. So time progressed, and I didn't necessarily focus on that the way I used to. And I ended up continuing to do various consulting kinds of roles with different companies through companies I'd set up. One company I had was Cashflow Studio, but then I eventually created a company called Lean Mobile Apps, focused on the lean startup modality, but with the intention of having mobile apps as the undergrounding linchpin of what happens. Um, the pandemic happened and it shifted
Mhm.
everything around for everybody,
Yeah.
including myself. And in that shift, I ended up getting to a point where I was doing some e-commerce. And when I say e-commerce, it was really doing live streaming sales and live
Mm.
streaming sales where we were essentially learning about live streaming, but then learning how to do online sales at the same time. So started to do that personally, and then someone else had a question about live streaming sales and ended up helping them a little bit. And then another person had questions about live streaming sales and helped them a little bit. And then that ended up being several people who had similar questions, and they became a part of the client group for the agency that we have today.
Okay, great. So I think you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what has been the biggest challenge that you've had since you started your agency there?
So we're still the best way I can put it is we're still kind of a small agency, boutique-ish, but really kind of getting to a point where we're doing more of the branding. So really maximizing how we effectively look at our brand playbook to understand not just the competition from other agencies, but also the competition for the various clients that we work with, because they're not all the same. I'm not working with strictly e-commerce salespeople. I'm not working with people who are strictly doing retail. I'm working with a cross section of people that have various interests, and it's been really kind of drilling down to understand the niches to help them to solve their problems. So I guess the biggest challenge we've had was just grabbing a hold of the best niche to satisfy for our purposes.
Okay. Um, and yeah, I'm sorry, like that. It kind of cut out there a little bit.
No
I
problem.
think you stopped talking, but like it was still moving. It was kind of a little bit but thank you for sharing that with me. So what's been your biggest success then so far?
So the biggest success, it hasn't been necessarily a financial success, even though it's kind of an interesting one for me. It was doing an Instagram ad, and media buying, I think, is very interesting to me. I think Facebook has been very effective. We use Facebook in various ways that have been cool. But we did an Instagram ad that the total ad cost about $70. The impact of the ad was that we had about 4,000 views. We had, I want to say like 4,100 views. We had, I want to say it might have been like 13 people actually reach out. We had roughly, I'd say 10 people actually physically, and this was for, let me give you the context. This was for a retail shop. So, like I said, 4,100 views. We had about 13 people actually send messages directly. We had about 10 people come to the retail shop, and that $70 ad resulted in over $3,000 in sales.
Oh wow!
That's and so,
fantastic.
Yeah, and that was one of those things where it wasn't really expected to result in something like that, and having that as a proof point really just said, okay, this works. And I thought that was very interesting to be able to, being able to 1x, 2x, 3x your money. If I just spent $70 and I made $70 back, I didn't lose. If I made $140 by spending $70, doing pretty well. If I got $300 out of $70, that's pretty good. The fact that I could say $70 really got me 3,000 was sort of, there's something here to it.
$70 into $3,000. That is what that. And since Facebook ads is kind of my thing, there, Instagram ads being a subdivision of Facebook ad, I'm gonna like delve in a little bit deeper there. Like, how was can you like explain a little bit how your targeting was? Did you have like a video, what kind of the creative was and stuff like that, without giving too much away there? Because that sounds like a fantastic ad.
Yeah, it was. But so let me frame it. It wasn't a fantastic ad. It was really trash.
Okay.
But what was interesting was it was not in Facebook. It was strictly on Instagram.
Okay.
So that's one of the things, and similar to you, I prefer, and we'll probably talk outside of this about Instagram ads. I prefer to use Facebook ads to do Facebook as a whole and do that whole, drilling down on it, because I'm very interested in how you do it and wanting to do more. In this case, it was more the opposite. It was like, okay, let me do this from my phone. Let me do this from the Instagram account. Let me do this. Where they even, so $70 was not even the actual cost. It was about $45 because it gave me a $25 credit up front. So the actual cost was $45, and the actual result was really about $3,200 in terms of the revenue generated from it. But the whole point was, it was a picture of it was a picture of one of the bikes. I took it in the shop. I cropped it out. I used Canva to crop out some of the information. I ended up talking about the bike, said that, hey, we have this available for you to try and ride, and come go ride. And it was really the call to action of reach out, come to the show location. I targeted people that were in a geographic area that was no more than, I'd say, a 50-mile radius of the location. In addition to that, I want to say I specifically targeted in this particular ad men only, which is probably rare too. But I specifically targeted men only, and in this particular one, I was showing a moped-ish kind of bike. So that's what I advertised. That's what I promoted. I did it for about a week. The cost ended up being about $75, $25 credit. So it ended up being about a $50 out-of-pocket total expense. The engagement was, hey, do you really have these? Are you really available? And I interacted with them pretty directly. All of this was on Messenger on Facebook. I'm sorry, all of this was on Messenger on Instagram. None of it was on the Facebook side. So I didn't have this associated with my Facebook business suite at all. And I have a whole different set of ads, a whole different component for the Facebook business suite. This was strictly, and it was a test to see how the Instagram Messenger ads worked. It wasn't a video, it wasn't a reel, it wasn't a story. It was just a strict Instagram ad that was structured around a particular post.
Nice.
And that I was able to have that kind of result, which was interesting.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I might ask you if you're willing to share it there.
I'll send it to you. I don't have it with me right now, but I'll send you the exact.
Yeah, no, but again, like, I'm glad you're parked right now. That being said, next question is like, what is your favorite marketing book, or do you have a favorite marketing book at this point, or business book there? People have been giving me here as well.
It's funny because I don't have one favorite marketing book. I think in the so my perspective on marketing is probably different than most. I want to say Keith Rossi has a book, Never Eat Alone. And
Never Eat Alone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. I think about that. I met the guy and I thought it was very interesting. It's funny, I've had a blessed opportunity to meet a lot of my favorite authors. When I got a chance to meet, and you probably know the story, I got a chance to meet the Lean Startup author. It was so random. It was like, wow, this is pretty doggone cool to just run into you in this massive building that's your conference, and you're by yourself with your wife, and we're having a real conversation. But meeting him was pretty cool, Eric Reese. But meeting Keith Ferrazzi, or Kevin Ferrazzi, with Never Eat Alone, it was interesting because he talked about the idea of just really turning meals into conversations and engagement with people where you get to delve into them. You kind of break bread and understand them a great deal more. But even more so than that, it was something that I thought about. Like, if I'm eating with you and we're breaking bread, I'm not particularly trying to hand you my business card. We're just having a conversation, we're dialoguing, we're getting to know each other. And I'm more inclined to say, okay, well, let's follow up with this, or and that's where it goes back to my overall philosophy that sort of shifted things for me based on that book was, I primarily don't use business cards. I will connect with somebody via LinkedIn right then and there. And I try not to use my phone as much when we're having a dinner conversation, what have you. But if we do talk about, okay, let's follow up, let's do this. Okay, I'm now going to talk to you about LinkedIn, and we're going to connect via LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has been sort of a linchpin for me when it comes to building my network, because somebody will say, hey, do you know somebody that does da-da-da-da? And 9 times out of 9, I have that actual contact. How long I've talked to them, how long I've known them, all of that stuff is in my LinkedIn network. I might have known them for one day. I might have known them for 10 years, but all of that's within my LinkedIn profile.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. How about podcasts? Do you have a favorite, like, business related or marketing related podcast at the moment?
It's going to sound the opposite of this, but I'm probably more in line with MMA podcasts.
Okay.
I haven't been really listening to as many business podcasts, even though I love, no question, I love everyone from Tap Plan to Internet Business Mastery. I love, what's his name? Gary V.
Gary V.
But I honestly spend most of my time, if I'm not reading a book or trying to write books myself, I spend it with MMA. I spend it with martial arts.
What's your favorite MMA podcast right now? Just like, what's the name?
I kind of, it's going to sound extremely, I don't want to say gauche, but I like Ciel Sonnen. I like your class. Ciel Sonnen, the bad guy Inc.
Okay, you'll have to. I don't know anything about MMA, so you'll have to like.
Oh wow! So most of my guys are pretty much the bad people in the industry.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
Joe Rogan, I like his podcast before it's gotten all the publicity it's gotten now. But I like Joe Rogan, Ciel Sonnen. Those are pretty much the ones I listen to. There's a few of them who are really focused on the business of MMA. And so if you didn't know, one of the things I actually have is my YouTube channel is Monty MMA. And it's because I'm passionate about martial arts. But I think it's interesting because MMA, if you listen to Ciel Sonnen and Joe Rogan, it's a business. And most of the people in that business don't realize they're in the business. They think they're in the business of fighting. It's not. They're in the business of marketing. They're in the business of marketing themselves, building a platform, building an audience, building a community, so that when they can walk away from, punching people in the face, they have a system or a team or an ability to have a conversation. Ciel Sonnen was a guy, and I know you don't know who he is. He never won a championship. He wasn't special. He wasn't incredible. But he was very good on the microphone. He was very good in how he talked, and
Mhm.
his ability to communicate, convey what his thoughts were, translated well beyond the cage. And it's interesting because back in the day, when you talk about people who were doing wrestling, it was like they would get on the microphone and talk. It would say something that was, oh, I'm Randy Macho Man Savage. I'm gonna beat you down and da da da. And Hulk Hogan would talk, and that's what they did is their hyperbolic message to get people to be interested to buy those venues. Well,
Mhm.
most people in MMA don't do that. Most people
Mhm.
in mixed martial arts, they come out there and they're just, some of them are humble, some of them come up with a stick, but most of them are not necessarily very articulate when it comes to the science of online marketing and
Of
promotion.
provoking
Still
people.
had that, yeah,
Yeah.
still had
Uh,
that as a component.
now I'm going to go down another little rabbit hole here, and hopefully
Feel
not
free.
too long down this rabbit hole. But since you mentioned MMA, name that I keep on hearing come up, and like I've listened to a little bit of his stuff. Probably not for me, but Anthony Tate, does that name, or Andrew Tate, does that name mean anything to you?
No.
Okay.
Is it Anthony?
That,
So then no.
yeah, I might have. I think it's A. Is the first name starts with A. The last name I believe is Tate.
Is it
That's
Smith? Anthony Smith?
no.
It's Tate.
The last name is definitely Tate. If you haven't heard of him,
Sure.
it's not. We don't even need to go down that road. Then
Okay.
let that being said, what is your favorite you know, informative or business related like YouTube or like video streaming thing going on right now? Would you say?
I gotta be honest with you. I think one of the most informative for me is the Lean Startup and
Okay.
the Lean Startup Co. And I say that to say a lot of what I try to do is with that clear mantra of a business model canvas, and
Mhm.
that's probably the best tool that I could say I've utilized over a period of time. And a business model canvas is somewhat similar to a one-page business plan. I've kind of specialized in doing one-page business plans for people. And a lot of times when I'm like the first thing I'm doing for customers when I'm working with them, if that's what they're looking to buy, is a one-page business plan. They're going to get that. And that's essentially capsulizing it in a way that makes it a clear conversation with others. And if they need more, then I can come back with a follow-up, whether it be a 14 or 63-page actual business plan. But the one-page business plan gets them to have the conversation with the person they need to have a conversation with. But the business model canvas via the Lean Startup is kind of where I started. And that's helped me to understand any business, any structure, any approach to what I'm trying to do.
Okay, so that's like going back to the kind of YouTube. As far as the YouTube channel, Lean Startup is still. I have not checked out their channel for a while, but they're coming out with
Yeah.
stuff pretty regular. Okay, cool. What has been your most helpful resource or tool that you've used for your business in the last year or so? There, would you say?
So that's that
And I
too.
think you might have just answered that, but like, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so it is really the business model canvas, and I say that to say it ends up not necessarily being the boilerplate business model canvas, even though it is really kind of a boilerplate business model canvas. I essentially take the business model canvas, understand the metrics, the key performance indicators, the profit, the loss, the profit, the expense, the key players. All of that is put in the business model canvas. I take that information, extrapolate it, and put it into a one-page business plan to communicate and convey a narrative about the business. They're two totally different documents. Like one is more like this, the other is like that. But they feed into each other, almost similar to you might have and this is kind of where it's interesting. You have your balance sheet, and then you have your income statement. They operate where they're not the same, but they operate together. And when you start to understand the differences between the two, that's where you have the cash flow statement. And to me, that's where you have the business plan. Like you have the business model canvas, which is this way, and then you have the one-page business plan, which is this way. And it's how these two flow that's really kind of the business plan. And so that's kind of how I operate with a lot of the businesses. It's like, okay, you're going to come to me. I'm going to work with you to understand your business via the business model canvas. Once I understand your business, I then can put together your one-page business plan. That one-page business plan conveys stuff to the outside audience that needs to know more about your business in an effective way. And then when they say, okay, I need to dive deeper into it, that's when we go into the full flow of the business plan. So the business model canvas has been sort of the most effective tool I've used to interpret what people need to really kind of build, and this is sort of a third out of these three, a business playbook. Because the business playbook is really starting to say, what's your avatar, what are your competitors, what's your brand, what's your vision, what's your elevator speech. Those things are what you have in a business playbook, which is part of, again, that's down here as a separate piece that I do also, but that's totally separate from business model canvas and one-page business plan, and then the full business plan.
All right, cool, thank you. And what has been the most impactful piece of advice that you can give to those people, just to people in general, to kind of improve, I guess, where their brand is going, or like how they're handling their marketing in general right now here? And you could say business canvas, you could say something a little bit different there too. Yeah, business model canvas, or yeah.
I would say two things. The best piece of advice I would say is kind of a twofold thing. One, believe, and two, take action. I think that we a lot of times spend, I'm a classic example. You want to do the research, you want to understand, I need to gather, I need to fully get all the data points together before I say or do anything. And that's completely wrong. And I think that false belief is a whole other story. You know, thinking that you can swim in the ocean and you can survive is an insane thing. But learning how to swim starts with having a belief that you can swim. And if you go out in the middle of the ocean, it's like, I've never swam before my entire life, and you just jump in, you're probably going to drown. But that drowning comes from a lack of belief, a lack of faith. Because the reality is, people float regardless. Like, if you drown in the water, your body's not going to sink. It's going to float. So it's like you drowned because you had a lack of faith. So it's really a matter of belief and action. So it's like learning how to swim in the shallow part of the water, just understanding that it's like, okay, get further in, get further in, get further in, get more comfortable. And as you get further in and get more comfortable, you are now able to swim. Now, you can sit on the docks the whole time and read a book and analyze all the other people swimming and all the other people doing things all day and never learn to swim. And a lot of people end up spending all that time learning what other people are doing or what other people have done and never just getting in the water. So I think belief and taking action are the two things that are tremendously helpful, regardless. You know, and that's the thing about it. Is like, once you're in it, it's confidence. Like, you're very confident when it comes to Facebook ads. The average person out here has zero confidence when it comes to Facebook ads. So your confidence allows you to be even more successful because you have the back end history of having success. Yeah,
absolutely. Cool. A great answer there for sure. I have been working. I've been on number 2 for a while, but like number 1, I'm just starting to get familiar with. So I like the advice there. And last but not least, how can people get a hold of you and learn more about you there if they kind of want to reach out there?
Okay, so I am on Instagram. I am at Lean Mobile Apps. That's probably the easiest way to catch me. The website is leanmobileapps.com/home. That's the easiest way. The website is leanmobileapps.com, but the easiest way to catch me is leanmobileapps.com/home. And they can reach me in those two places. Again, I'm always on Instagram. So if you really want to catch me, I'm on Instagram. I don't do much Facebook as much as I used to. But Instagram is one of those places and it's funny, I have several Instagram accounts, but I'm on Lean.
Okay. All right. Well, Monty, my friend, good talking to you again. Thank you so much for taking the time, and have a great rest of the day.
Always a pleasure. Sounds good.